Once upon a time, there was the Macintosh, a friendly machine designed by geniuses like Steve Jobs, Bill Atkinson, and Andy Hertzfeld. Over time, the geniuses went away, and things went downhill. Going back to some of the original design philosophies of the early Macintosh, the Mac was reborn with the introduction of the iMac. With Mac OS X, it went on to become the most powerful yet intuitive workstation with a user interface so slick you wanted to lick it. Then, genius left. What had started simple and pleasant is again turning complicated and messy.
The new Mac Pro, the SSD, which you can find right there. While I can get access to them and remove them, they are tied to the T2 chip and authenticated specifically to this machine. What that means is if I go on eBay and find an old iMac Pro SSD, it's not going to work. The only way you can upgrade and replace these SSDs are directly through an Apple authorized service provider, which is really pretty annoying.
And then there's the real dark side. What another, younger, aspiring company had once set out to fight, they are now perpetuating. Big Brother. And from there it only got worse. With so-called platform security that in reality secures nothing but their own revenue stream, they are not helping you, the user. Their lock-in and lock-down is getting worse and worse. You are no longer free to own your devices and to do with them as you like. It feels more like you are a guest on devices rented to you. When you have to disclose your full personal information and pay a fee that amounts collectively to billions just to be able to develop applications for the platform, then something is seriously wrong. When you have to throw away perfectly capable devices just because no more system updates are coming down or RAM is getting small, then something is seriously wrong. When you can't swap devices in your machine even with genuine other parts, then something is seriously wrong. When you cannot reinstall the software that came with your machine without an internet connection and without giving away your personal information, then again, something is seriously wrong. Enough is enough. Enough lockdown. Enough lock-in. Enough Big Brother. Can we do something about it? Let's break free so that 2021 won't be like 1984. Can we combine the spirit of the original Mac with the power of Unix? Can we say hello again? It's been done before, so it should not be impossible. Let's do it again. Let's make something that is not just a theme. Plenty of those already out there. Let's make something that is not just a clone. After all, technology has not stood still since 1984. Let's make something that's original yet friendly and welcoming to both newcomers and switchers. A real desktop system made to work for, not against, the user, standing on the shoulders of giants, open and unencumbered, privacy respecting. Many great things started with a person scratching their own itch. This is no different. I am making the system in part because I want to use it myself. As a longtime Mac and Linux user, I came to appreciate the advantages of open source. But I've constantly asked myself why everything has to be so complicated. With projects like Pure Darwin and AppImage, I hope to improve the state of things. Darwin did not attract a large enough base of independent developers to become viable on the desktop. And Linux, well, if there had been one real desktop Linux platform, then maybe the year of Linux on the desktop might have been last year. But in reality, we're still waiting. Hundreds of distributions agree on nothing, and one vendor tries to push their stack on everyone. Was Steve Jobs right? Is it really Big Blue who will dominate our desktops? Usability-wise, things have been deteriorating lately as people have forgotten the power of the desktop metaphor and have accustomed themselves to mobile user interfaces designed to consume, not to produce. Gnome hides menus in a hamburger menu and doesn't even show keyboard shortcuts in the menu anymore. Removed icons from the desktop and wanted to take away the possibility to start applications in the file manager. KDE has so many checkboxes and configuration options that no two systems work the same. See my series on Linux usability on this topic. It started with desktop publishing and office work, later video editing, and lately 3D printing. Unlike phones and tablets, which are for media consumption first and foremost, desktop computers are for making stuff. So creative makers are who we are targeting. People who write, people who draw, people who paint, people who design, people who code, people who blog, people who video blog, people who 3D print. Today there is a huge ecosystem of open source applications for these people, yet getting everything up and running is still harder than it needs to be. And yes, there are mere mortals, people who just want to send an email, people who usually get help from a friend for computer stuff, people who don't want to see small white text with incomprehensible techno-babble on a black screen scrolling by when turning on the computer. There are people with certain expectations on how a system should work, who would never give up their command key for control. Let's think of them too. Whether you are just looking for a system to put on your 2007 iMac that no longer gets macOS updates, or whether you just want a Unix workstation without the hassle of setting it up, or whether you would like to help shape the future of the system as a developer. Maybe the system is also for you? Let's talk about the goals of helloSystem. I never quite remember whether it was Leonardo da Vinci or Steve Jobs who said, "Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication." But in any case, I wholeheartedly agree. Setting the language of the keyboard should be no more complicated than clicking on the name of the language. One click, or even better, the keyboard should just tell the computer its language. 0 clicks. Less is more. Every pixel on the screen should serve a purpose. Every animation in the user interface should convey sense. Getting this right is hard, but it is what makes systems pleasant. So start not by asking yourself what is missing. Start by asking yourself what can be removed, so that you end up with the essential, but don't fall into the trap of removing power. Simple yet powerful is where we want to be. Our objective is to be both easy to use for mere mortals, yet powerful under the hood for advanced users. In helloSystem, we're using a 3-layer UX design philosophy for simplicity and power. For mere mortals, removing everything that is confusing. This is what Grandma sees when she uses the computer. For advanced users, give raw access to the underlying components. This layer is all about explaining advanced users how things work under the hood and giving them raw access to tweak things. For developers, show them the code. Given that our code is open, why don't we embrace this in the user interface? So let's use code that does not have to be compiled wherever we can. This way the code is always right there with the user, ready to be looked at and to be experimented with. No compilers to install, no developer packages to hunt down, no searching for the source code. Because there is a menu item that lets you have a glance at the source code right there in the user interface. But hold on, there is one more level. It is what is below the surface. We call it level 0 because it is invisible to the naked eye. Imagine that you are in Germany, as I am. Why do I have to keep telling my computer that my keyboard is German? Even one click is too much. Most people with a German keyboard will want their computer to use German, so why not just do it? Yet most operating systems get this terribly wrong and just use English as the default all the time. Let's do just the right thing by default, with no need for most users to configure anything. Let's be mouse-centric. Unapologetically mouse-centric. Creative makers, as we call them, require a pixel-precise instrument for pointing. Not a finger, which may be good enough for easy media consumption, but certainly not for professional-level work. There is this unfortunate trend in user interface design that results in desktops being watered down with mobile user interface elements designed for severely restricted mobile devices.
What I also find is just incredibly annoying at a smaller point is the use of kind of mobile design on desktop computers.
A desktop is not a mobile phone. Hence, let's not water down our user interfaces with design elements made for anything else but the mouse. So, let's start with the essentials. The things that make a desktop, well, a desktop. The stuff that originated at Xerox PARC and was refined by the likes of Bill Atkinson and Andy Hertzfeld. Number 1, the global menu. It all starts with the menu bar at the top of the screen. Let me point out quickly why it is so awesome. You can reach it extremely fast by moving the mouse upward fast without targeting anything. Your mouse pointer can't go anywhere else when it reaches the top edge of the screen. This is called Fitts Law. Also, you can get an overview about the functionality of an application extremely fast. You just click on the first menu item, and then you drag your mouse over the whole menu from left to right. You will get an instant overview over the whole functionality of the application. At the same time, you will see the shortcuts as reminders on how to invoke commands even faster. So for me, a global menu is a must for productivity. And our version of it comes with an extra trick that makes it a true productivity booster. But more on that later. I find it surprising that most open source desktops don't come with a working one by default. Gnome ships with something that looks like one superficially, but lacks the functionality. KDE ships one but hides it away among thousands of configuration settings, not to be discovered by most users. Number 2, the desktop. It's a desktop, not just a wallpaper. It actually serves a purpose, and the purpose is not decoration. It is my main working space. It is where I put the files I am working on at the moment. It's like my physical desk with the stuff I need most ready to grab. Do you put away all your stuff in some drawers all of the time? I don't. So I need icons on the desktop. Real icons that do real work. Icons for disks, folders, files, and the trash. Oh yes, and that stuff goes on the right-hand side of the desktop. I'm actually a bit undecided on this one. Probably not essential enough to be included here. After all, the first 9 versions of the Mac could do fine without it. Maybe I should describe instead the file manager and how it should be spatial, meaning it should remember where you put stuff on the screen. But there's one more thing, that productivity booster. Something that has fundamentally changed the way we use computers today compared to when the desktop metaphor was invented. Search. So we put it front and center in helloSystem. As the first menu item, it allows you to search through all of the menu entries. And since applications are in the system menu, this effectively doubles as a fast application launcher. Unlike with shortcuts, you don't have to remember abbreviations. Just start typing the name of a menu command or the name of an application and press enter. Oh, and you invoke it at any time by pressing Command Space. You need to see this in action. It boosts my productivity manifold. To get the desired level of simplicity and user experience, we need to do some things different than most open source desktop systems. For end-user applications, we are using application directories, also known as bundles. What is an application bundle? It is just a directory that contains every file that belongs to that application, including the executable itself, but also resources like icons, metadata, graphics, documentation, and so on. What is the advantage? Applications shipped as application bundles can easily be moved around in the file system, can easily be copied to, for example, another machine or a network share. They can easily be copied on the local machine to get a second instance of the same application, for example, to make changes to it while keeping the original around. They can easily be deleted by moving to the trash, easily be managed without the need for a package manager, easily be modified without any side effects to other parts of the system, and they can be easily distributed, for example, in archives like zip files or disk images. Last but not least, application bundles can easily be understood by switchers coming from other operating systems with similar application distribution formats. I could continue talking about underlying technologies for a long time, but let's say hello to helloSystem. Let's have a first look, shall we? Let's start with something very basic, like setting the language of the keyboard. Actually, using this example, we can showcase many design decisions for helloSystem and show what makes this system tick. Don't forget, this is about how it works, not just how it looks. So here it is, our keyboard preference application. The first thing to notice is that it is just an application, like every other application. No special preference panel that draws in special frameworks from the system, just a normal application. It sits well alongside other applications, in the Preferences folder, which is in the Applications folder, much more easy than, say, on other systems. Now, if we look at the properties, we can see that indeed it is just a directory. In fact, we can have a look inside it, but more on this later. This dialog pretty much summarizes the design philosophy of helloSystem. Not much to see here? Well, that's actually exactly the point. As German graphic designer Dieter Rams would say, less, but better. See, I live in Germany and I have a German keyboard attached. The system is smart enough to detect this and to do the right thing for me automatically by default. So for me, I don't even need this dialog. Remember that layer 0 of our design philosophy? When you make a change, it's instant. There are no extra steps you need to take. Let's do things with as few clicks as possible. We don't need cancel or apply buttons. Let's talk about the window itself for a bit. We use title bars for windows that are uniform throughout the entire system. You always have your Windows close and minimize buttons in the top left corner and the title of the window in the center, so you always know how the window is called. There is this unfortunate trend for what is called client-side window decorations, where people started to put all sorts of unrelated stuff into the title bar. Gnome is the worst offender here, but others were quick to follow suit. We don't want that. We want consistency and simplicity. And we use real checkboxes, not those pesky slider things that waste a lot of space on the screen and you never know whether they are on or off. Speaking of checkboxes, I am sure you noticed these checkboxes down here. In helloSystem, we want to make the keyboard as friendly as possible, so we deactivate caps lock by default. And we swap function keys so that the command key will be the key left to the spacebar, putting menu shortcuts right where they belong, under your thumb, rather under that command key under your little pinky finger. Oh, and when we notice that we're running on a Mac or have an Apple keyboard, we also just do the right thing. And there you have it, the keyboard preference application. You see, a lot of thinking went into making this as simple as possible. But wait, this is just level 1, what mere mortals see. So I hear you saying, what about power users? Don't they need more options, more ways to tweak everything? You see, this is where the menu bar comes in. You didn't forget about the menu bar, did you? This is level 2. Expose the underlying tools, make them discoverable. Allow power users to find out how stuff works under the hood. We do this in the About box. By explaining which tool is used under the hood and by linking directly to the relevant man page, a power user can start customizing right away. This is the power of the second layer. And you should have a look at the man pages. In FreeBSD they are really great. I especially like the examples section. So this is layer 2 for power users. But hey, we can do more because we are open source. So let's play our greatest strength compared to commercial vendors. Let's put the source code right in front of you if you want to see it or play with it. Just go to the Preferences folder, right-click on the keyboard application and select Open in New tab. Notice the address bar. As you can see, we're really just in a folder right now. Now let's open that keyboard file. Oh wow, this is written in Python. Python and Qt. Python because it does not need to be compiled and is easy to understand. Qt because it is the native toolkit for helloSystem and a great choice for a cross-platform toolkit that many real applications use, not just baby ones like this. Although those tend to be written in C++, where you have to deal with memory and pointers and all of that. Let's have a look. Ah, right. This is using setx keyboard map, as it said in the About box. Oh, and here is this special treatment of Apple keyboards I was talking about. Have a look for yourself.
The global menu is really a key component of the system. As you can see, it is always present at the top of the screen. Now let's open an application. Featherpad, a simple text editor. When I open it, the global menu is instantly populated. Let's have a look what Featherpad has to offer. Very easy. I now know the basic functionality of the application. Let's have a look at the About screen. Now all of this can be operated by the mouse or via action search, which means that you can search in the global menu bar. Let's do just that. We can always bring it up by pressing Command space and then typing something like Featherpad. I just type FEA and press Enter, and sure enough, Featherpad launches. Now I can write some text. Hello world. Now let's save this without using the mouse. Just again press Command space, type SAV, down, file save. And I get the save dialog. Very quick. Let's go out of here. Now let's quit the application. Command space, Q, U, quit. I want to discard the changes. Done. That was easy. I can operate the whole system just by the keyboard without having to remember any shortcuts. So while this might look like not very useful for a very small application, it is extremely useful for a larger application like the GIMP. This application has lots and lots of menus and lots of commands in those menus. Remembering all of them and their shortcuts would really be tedious. So here it is a big help that we can just use the same search as shown before. Let's open a file. Simple. Now let's see how applications are managed on helloSystem. Go to Computer, click on Applications. As we can see, this is just a folder in the root directory called Applications. It contains some applications like Featherpad and some folders like Developer and so on. If we want to put an application into a folder, it's easy. Just move it there and it will ask you what to do. For example, we could move it here. I'm not doing it for now. This is then also reflected in the System menu. The System menu lists all the applications we have, also the applications in the folders that we created. So all of this is really interactive. A user can freely move applications and add folders without any restrictions, without needing any extra editor tool or anything like that. Everything is done right here in the file manager, because we believe the file system is really a friend of the user. It should not be hidden from the user. The user should work in the file manager and should do everything in the file manager. For example, if I want to uninstall an application, I can just right-click, move to trash. And it's really as simple as that. I'm not doing it for now. But in any case, I think you will understand how powerful this concept is when you start modifying applications. Let's have a look, for example, at the utilities. Say, I want to work on the calculator. Let's have a look. So the calculator is really a very, very basic thing. We can add some numbers, and that's basically already it. I can also have a look at the help menu, about. Yeah, it's a very simple calculator application. Now, let's say I want to hack on it. How do I do this? Well, first of all, I tend to make a copy. And the way I work, I want the copy on my desktop, because everything I'm working on currently is on my desktop. So I say copy here. Sure enough, here I have my calculator, and by right-clicking it and saying open in new tab, I can have a look inside. Here I can see the resources that make up this application. For example, the Python file. I can open this, and here I could start hacking away on the calculator. Of course, it still runs from this location, and this is the modified one, whereas if I go back to, let's say, the one in utilities, this one, this is the original one. So a very simple way to have multiple instances of the same application and being able to keep them around in parallel and, for example, change one, whereas the original one is still unchanged. One important little touch that we added to helloSystem is error handling when launching applications. So let's modify our calculator a little bit so that it is actually throwing an error. For example, we might forget to import something. Save this. Now if I run this Python file on the command line, for sure it throws an error. But what happens if I run the same here in the graphical environment? In most other systems, it would just silently fail. In helloSystem, it actually shows the error. That's very useful, I think. Speaking of applications, we believe the system should be quite usable right out of the box. So we are delivering applications for 3D printing, audio, developer, graphics, and video. But we're not actually pre-installing those applications. We're thin installing them, as we call it. So if you open, for example, a developer tool for the first time, it will ask you whether it should be downloaded. Just say yes, enter your password, and the application will be downloaded and is now available to run. Let's have a look at the utilities that come with helloSystem. Build Notify is a simple one. It just shows the build status, a success or the lack thereof of the latest ISO build for experimental versions of helloSystem. Calculator we already had a look at. Calendar is a simple calendar application. It is meant more as an example for you to inspect and modify. Create Live Media is really an interesting one. It allows you to download and write to an attached USB storage device the latest released and experimental helloSystem ISOs. Just select one, click Continue. Now attach a USB storage device. I'm just doing that right now. The storage device will show up here. Confirm. And if I click Continue, I will start writing the ISO image to the storage device. Documentation brings you to the helloSystem online documentation. The Hardware Probe tool lets you inspect your computer and send information regarding the devices in your system to an online database. If you agree to the privacy terms and click Continue, a hardware probe is being uploaded to the public database, and you can then view it on the web using the given URL. Install FreeBSD is the installer that lets you install the live ISO to a hard disk. The logs utility shows logs in the system, and it also highlights errors in red and even gives little pop-up notifications. Network is right now being developed and is a menu that can be used to scan for wireless networks, select wireless networks, and to connect to them. QTerminal is a terminal application, as the name implies. Remote assistance is special. It allows you to get assistance from a friend over the internet. For this, it is starting an encrypted peer-to-peer tunnel using a software called TunTalks. And using this long string here, a friend can connect to your machine and can control your screen and mouse and the entire system. You just need to transfer this long string to your friend somehow. Your friend goes to File, Give Assistance, enters the long string here in this field and clicks on Connect, and is then able to help you resolving any issues on your machine. Screencast is a tool that is under development that, allows you to make screencasts like this one. Sticky Notes, as the name implies, is a small application that you can use to keep notes around on the screen. Volume is what you see in the menu here. you can select an audio device and set its volume. Finally, zeroconf. I'm a big fan of zeroconf, which shows all of the devices in my local network. And by just double-clicking them, it is always trying to do something useful, like open it in the browser or connect to it via SSH. In the future, we want to bring in zeroconf deeper into the system. And we are thinking about all sorts of GUI options where we can make use of this kind of information. And that's it, a quick overview over the utilities that come with helloSystem. Now let's have a look at the preferences. Preferences in helloSystem are just regular applications which can be modified in the same ways as shown before. Let's have a look at boot environments. A boot environment is a bootable clone of a snapshot of the working system. You can create a safe, failback boot environment before upgrading or making any major changes to the system by just clicking on New, entering a new boot environment name, and there you have it. Now you could, for example, upgrade the system, and in case it is not working as expected, you can then always go back to the test boot environment on the next reboot. I will go back to my main boot environment and remove the extra one I had just created. Desktop lets you make some adjustments to your desktop, nothing too special here. Keyboard we have already talked about extensively, so let's skip that for now. Mouse. Here I can adjust the mouse acceleration speed, and as you can see, it's really all designed to be very simple. Print settings lets you configure your printer. Screen settings lets you, as the name implies, configure the screen resolution and layout if you have multiple screens. The sharing application lets you share your machine. For example, it allows you to set up remote login for others to access the computer via SSH, and it also lets you to enable screen sharing so that others can access the screen using the VNC protocol over SSH. Shortcut keys allows you to add your own global short keys or modify the existing ones. And there are some really useful ones, like opening the file manager, opening a web browser, opening a terminal, and so on. You should have a look at them. Sound, as the name implies, lets you modify aspects of the sound cards in your system. With users, you can add your own users, and wireless networks is a tool that lets you manage wireless networks. And that's it, the preferences that currently ship with helloSystem. All of this is designed to be extremely user-friendly, not only for the end user, but also very easy to hack on. So if you want to see how things are made, then you can go to github.com, helloSystem, ISO, and this is the main repository which shows how the system is built. Essentially, there is one build script, build.sh, which is used to produce the helloSystem live ISOs. Here is a trick to see how things are done in helloSystem and which tickets already exist. Just type H and then some subject, for example, trackpad. H stands for helloSystem, and this will search the entire GitHub organization helloSystem for any instances of the word trackpad. And sure enough, we have one occurrence of the word in code and 6 issues related to trackpads. So again, if you are interested in some aspect of helloSystem, just type H and then the name of what it is that you're interested in. For example, mouse. Here are all the mentions of mouse. Similarly, we can easily browse man pages by entering man and then what it is that you want to know. That's pretty easy, isn't it? So how can you contribute to helloSystem? Well, a great place to start is the helloSystem documentation, which you will find in the bookmarks. Here is not only a user guide, but also a developer guide, which describes in much more detail the architecture, the boot process, and also has contact information. Another great resource is our IRC channel, helloSystem, on Freenode, and also mirrored on Matrix. Another way to get started is to just grab for to do in, let's say, applications, utilities. And you will see there are lots of to-dos. Same goes for fix-me's. So that's another great way to start. We set out to design something that is simple, easy, and welcoming, especially to switchers from the Mac. In doing so, we decided to leave out a couple of technologies that you might find surprising that they are not part of our solution. So what did you not see today? Well, first of all, we are not using Linux, mainly because we don't want to have to deal with multiple distributions. With FreeBSD, we have one consistent base system. We have to test stuff once against FreeBSD, and we can be sure that FreeBSD is the same for everyone. Also, you didn't see anything from the Gnome, GTK, and so on stack, including Pulse Audio, Pipewire, Systemd, and so on. Our stretch goal is even, well, maybe it's not very realistic, but our stretch goal is to have no more glib in the system. Basically, everything that's coming from Big Red or now Big Blue, we don't want in our system. Also, the cross-desktop standards in the XDG specifications we think are lacking in terms of what user experience can be made with them. So we don't want any more desktop files to be moved around in the system and icons that have to be copied to special places. So that's why we treat XDG standards as something that we support to some level, mainly to maintain backward compatibility with existing applications, but we don't really embrace them. Going forward, we want to use application bundles and more elegant solutions than what the XDG standards provide. Wayland as a display server has been in development for over a decade now, yet very existential things like screen sharing, screencasting, global shortcuts, and a whole list of other things are not working. So we are very cautious. We don't want to switch to Wayland anytime soon or at any time, to be honest. So we're firmly in Xorg land for the foreseeable future at least. And finally, even though we are using some KDE applications and we find them great, we are not using the KDE Plasma desktop itself because it has too many configuration knobs that make the system less than easy and welcoming and friendly to switchers. What's next for the project? Well, lots of polish. We have to do lots of polishing in almost all places in the system. And we want to go about this by really eating our own dog food, which means that, well, I, for example, have been using the system as my daily driver for half a year now. And whenever I run into something that I don't like, I go about changing it. So I hope that more users can use the system, start to use the system as a daily driver, and then go from there and refine, do more polish, and so on. One area in the user interface that we're especially interested in is using animations. Animations not just as ornaments to be flashy and modern, but really animations to convey meaning, to convey sense. For example, if I'm opening a folder, why doesn't it animate into a window rather than just opening a window out of nowhere? Another area that we will have to look into is file type associations, MIME type handling, that kind of stuff. On the Mac it is very easy to tell for one specific document that it should be opened with one specific instance or version of an application. Well, that's not so easy with the XDG standards, so we need to do better than that. Another area we are interested in is full text search. That is hardly surprising given that we put search front and center as the first menu item. Obviously, we want to expand the capabilities of what our search can do, and that includes searching your documents. We think that finding documents on your hard disk should not be any harder than finding documents on the web. And of course, making everything just work means continuously improving defaults. We care a lot of defaults, so if you encounter something that you think should be pre-configured differently, please let us know. It is not our goal to add a lot of additional features here and there. I mean, of course, the system and its functionality as it is right now could still here and there need some additional features, but adding just thousands of features is not a goal here in this project. So it's really more about refining what we have, maybe even take things away that are currently in the system that are not so desirable, and then refining and polishing what we have. You can, of course, be part of that. So what do we need help with? There are some topics where Qt knowledge is required, especially our core components like the menu, the dock, the desktop, and the filer. So if you have any Qt knowledge and would like to contribute to the project, this is a great chance for you to work on the core components. Then there is PyQt for the smaller utilities, preferences, and so on. For example, we should start making everything translatable. Then on the FreeBSD level, we need more experienced FreeBSD desktop users. For example, I have just started using FreeBSD half a year ago, and I consider myself still pretty much a beginner when it comes to FreeBSD and how to use it on the desktop. So any experienced users or even kernel and userland developers from the FreeBSD project would be highly welcome to help us improve helloSystem. The same goes for ports maintainers. For example, our web browser has so many dependencies because it pulls in half of KDE, which could be easily solved by making a light version of the package, or the port rather. Then we want to define some common reference hardware to ensure that, for example, on a certain set of devices, everything runs 100%, and that includes notebooks where we want to have the battery performance optimized, all the function keys work, sleep, power management, all of that good stuff. Then there is ARM. We are very interested in affordable systems like single board computers or even TV boxes. Would be very interested to bring our system on those kinds of systems. Designing is a big topic, and yeah, we do have some icons, but we think we can improve in the visual aspect a lot. So we're highly interested in visual designers. And finally, testing. Testing helps a lot. So what do we want to achieve in FreeBSD specifically? I already mentioned the full support for target hardware. Older Macs are an important type of target hardware. We would like to have excellent support for those, especially systems that no longer run the current versions of macOS. Then I mentioned notebooks, screen and keyboard brightness, sleep, power management, you know, this stuff. Then in FreeBSD, packages that disappear from one day to another, for example, in the quarterly packages, have been plaguing us. So right now we're still using 12.1 rather than 12.2. And we're not using quarterly, but actually last quarter's packages because of those things. Yeah, we would be very interested in a system where packages do not disappear from one day to the next and where the Intel graphics driver really works with the latest system. I already mentioned the light versions of packages, especially KDE application packages. Falcon, the web browser, even wants to install a MySQL server, which I think is quite a bit strange. Or Scanlight, the scanning application. We would like to have package versions of those that are specifically made for use without the full KDE Plasma desktop. Obviously, this work stands off the shoulders of giants, and here are just a few shoutouts to people that have helped us a lot during the development of helloSystem so far. There are many more, which are noted in our documentation. So that's about it. Before we go to the question and answer session, how did I make this presentation today? Of course, everything was produced on helloSystem with OBS Studio, Featherpad, Mark Show, Audacity, Shotcut, and FFmpeg. And now I'm open for your questions.
To see if everything. I'm seeing the live channel at the same time. So, oh man, everything is freezing again. Shit.
Okay, now it says Q&A is coming up in a few seconds.
Okay, right. So. Okay, so we are back again to Q&A questions. So thank you for this presentation. So now it's time for questions. We talked a little bit before, so I know you take notes about the questions. So I'll let you answer them. Please go ahead. So just before answering, just summarize a little bit the questions. So for people who are not connected to the channel and I have only the video.
Oh, sure, absolutely. So thanks for having me. And I want to say this community of BSD is fantastic. It's such a welcoming, great community. Huge thank you to you all. Maybe some people don't realize it, but I started using FreeBSD on the desktop and FreeBSD at all, frankly, just half a year ago. And basically the day I started using it, I decided this is cool. I want to improve it. And that's what I've been doing since then. So to start with the first comment that was about Macs. No, you don't have to be embarrassed if you're using a MacBook. I mean, if you go to any open source conference, you always see people with MacBooks. And in fact, I'm using MacBooks myself. So for helloSystem, it's a specific goal to make the software run real well on this original Apple hardware, especially those models that Apple doesn't support anymore. I have a couple of Macs that are still running perfectly fine, but there is no official OS update coming anymore from Apple, and I want to continue using those machines. And this is a piece of why we're doing helloSystem, in fact. So there was also a comment about this sounds much like macOS with some tweaks, and in fact it is. Look, this is no secret. The secret source has been out in public, in books. In fact, Apple wrote books about how to human user interface back in '92 already. And if you read that book, the Mac HIG, it says this book is for everyone who wants to develop applications for the Macintosh, but it's also basically for everyone who wants to make software that is usable. And basically, we're just reading that book and taking today's technology like FreeBSD, Qt, Python, and so on, and implement the basic ideas, the basic philosophies. So yeah, if you like Apple, I like Apple as well, but I think macOS is way past its peak. I think it has peaked maybe 10 years ago. And since then, they have brought lots of stuff from the mobile world, lots of restrictions, lockdown, which I don't like personally. So by combining some of the ideas that really have been out there and have been used since over 30 years, almost 40 years now, and by bringing them into an open source system, everyone can profit. Also, there was a question about Gnome. And yes, if you like Gnome, then continue to use Gnome. I happen to like the old Macs, and I would like to have a system that works a bit more like the original Macs. If you are like me, maybe you want to give helloSystem a try. There was one remark that FreeBSD is mainly a server system. And yes, I get it. I mean, FreeBSD is great for the server, but I think it can do so much more. It can be a great server, but we can also turn it into a great desktop system. And in fact, that is what we are doing. It is also still FreeBSD. Hello is just a configuration, let's say FreeBSD tuned for the desktop, but underneath it's still a real FreeBSD. So I get it that people like to mix and match and take some component from here and some component from there. In fact, there are some statistics that show that FreeBSD users are more likely to select specifically their pieces of software on the desktop compared to, for example, Linux users, which just use whatever comes with the distribution. So you can still do that with helloSystem. There was a question about Unicode, and to be frank, I haven't run into those kinds of issues, so I cannot comment about anything specifically difficult concerning Unicode. Probably I will run into those issues sooner or later, but so far I can say I haven't seen them. Now, one big area of questions that came up is how the system handles updates, both for the operating system and for the applications. This is an area that is not completely defined yet. What is clear at this point is that we want to make updates, both of the system and the applications, more robust and more simple for mere mortals than what you traditionally see. So for now, you have your usual tools, package tools that you can use like you do in FreeBSD, but we have been thinking a lot about how to make this even simpler and more robust. So the basic idea is to do a split in the stack where you have a base system, the operating system, that is automatically updated by itself. And then you have separate from that something for the applications where you as the user can decide whether you want to have always the latest or you want to keep what you currently have. And in addition to that, for example, have a nightly build or something like that to make it really flexible for the user to try out new applications while being sure that you never ruin everything else. You don't ruin your existing system. You don't ruin the version of the application that's already on the system. How exactly we will do that, we still need to figure out, but I do have some experience in this area from the app image project, which I've been doing for a couple of years in the Linux world. So this is a bit the thinking image-based updates for the operating system rather than file-based or package-based, where you can do neat stuff like binary delta updates. So you just download the bytes that actually have changed, and then something vaguely like app image for the applications. Regarding the user interface, there was a comment about the dock. And as I said in the talk, I'm a bit undecided about the dock myself. Interestingly, the dock is the one user interface element that is part of helloSystem that was not part of the original Macintosh in 1984. So yeah, I also use the dock right now, but I could imagine that we do something in the global menu that replaces a lot of its functionality and then works a bit more like the original Macintosh did. So definitely, if you're interested in this area, come join the project. We want to bring in this kind of functionality into the global menu. There was a question on application bundles, how to make an application bundle, how to turn an existing application into the bundle format. In principle, it's easy. What you need to do is two things. First, you need to make your application relocatable in the file system, which means you cannot use any hard-coded paths. You need to resolve all paths relative to the main application so that if the user moves around the bundle or makes a copy, it still works. Make it relocatable. Number two, you need to make sure that your application privately ships all dependencies that are not part of the base system. The base system being defined as what ships on the live ISO when you download helloSystem. So by doing those two things, you basically have an application bundle. And all the details are, of course, in our developer documentation. There was a question about the global menu. How did we achieve integration, especially with GTK applications such as Gnome? And actually, this topic it took a lot of research and trial and error. It is quite complex. So we wrote down our findings because also we didn't find a lot of consistent documentation. So there is a page in our documentation, in our developer documentation, that explains all the different libraries, binaries, and how everything needs to work together to get proper global menu integration to work. It's complex, so I can't explain it fully right now, but please have a look at that page. Another question was whether there is a script or a procedure to convert a plain BSD into hello. We're currently not offering this due to two reasons. First, not everything that we use in helloSystem is currently packaged properly as a port. We are using some intermediary packages, as we call it, while putting together the live ISO. We're putting things into temporary packages that then get installed into the live ISO, but those are not made available for separate download. And that has a second reason as well. We want to provide the whole customer experience from out of the box when the user for the first time boots the system, how the bootloader is configured, how the system boots up with the graphical splash screen. Everything should be a complete user experience out of the box, which of course we cannot provide if we just offer the individual bits and pieces of helloSystem. But I mean, if someone wants to package everything up nicely and make it work, that's a great way to participate in the helloSystem development. There was also the question whether CFS or ZFS is included in helloSystem. And yes, it's not only included, it's used by default, both for the live ISO image, which you can run from a USB stick, as well as it's the default file system when you install the system to hard disk. And we also have a graphical tool to configure boot environments. But much more work on integrating this into the filer, into the graphical file manager is planned, so that, for example, you can go easily back in time to view snapshots that you have taken previously. There was also a question about Haiku. And Haiku, for those who are not familiar with it, is a modern version of the BOS philosophy, an operating system that's long gone, but that was created by some of the original Apple developers that were working on macOS before. And BOS today really has some very interesting concepts, for example, for handling resources like icons or metadata or how applications are managed. And I'm a big fan of it. In fact, I wrote an article series on Medium about